Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. I've started the recording and here we go. We are Earth Medicine for the Soul. My name is Oakwalker. I'm with my dearest friend, Frank Stronghorse, and we're going to talk today about authenticity a little bit, picking up from where we left off and move back into a little bit more to discussion about shadow work. What have you got on that, Frank?
Well, the- in our work with our elder councils that, we've been working with for over 20 years, remember them talking about this, about, your authentic self and your authentic self. I kept thinking, well, what is that? I mean, I am authentic, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and, uh, and it's a real dichotomy because in particular in relation to we were talking about the shadow work is that it's almost like you get the Hopis have the prophecy about the day of purity, the purific great purification. And so I think each individual person has that same modality in work and play. They're moving towards a place of purification. And on the way, they pretty much everybody wants to drag themselves over the coals, to get to it. And of course, everyone while they're
Firewalking.
doing that is thinking, well, I am authentic. That's just it's
Yeah.
this is authentic as I get, but it's not, and that's really the tricky part about this is, I think when I felt like I'd really achieved my authentic self, I wasn't trying.
Mm.
you know it's like I wasn't even trying. It's just like it was almost like all these different lifetimes of knowing, not knowledge, but of knowing, came together and catalyzed in this being that is right here, right now, and once that happened, the knowing of the authentic self occurred. It
Yes.
just occurred. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, and it wasn't something, that I had to go out and pronounce or prove or anything. It was very opposite of that. In fact, I was thinking about this earlier. I'm going to add a book I'm working on right now. I think I'm going to add another chapter about the I am versus, hey, how you like me now? you know,
So
and
this,
because I just, I mean, when Colleen and I were first getting together, and one of the pivotal moments for us is I asked her, I said, "Do you know what the I am is?" And she said, "Yes." I says, "What is it?" She says, "Well, there aren't any words to describe it." And I just went, boom,
thank
you
you.
know, yes, because that was like, because I'd done this with several other people and say, do you know what the I am is? Oh, yeah. What is it? And they're just worked their ass off to try to impress me. And I just like, you don't know, man. You
Uh-huh.
don't know. And it's literally something that you have to experience,
Hmm.
to really understand. The only words that I could really come up with that come even more close is that it's a timeless space inside the heart chamber of God. It was
Beautiful.
just that letter, that the place of perfection is like you've arrived. You don't know how you got there, but you arrived, and it is, taking you to a place of perfection. And
Hmm.
that's to me, that's the I am, And so the shadow work is really it's, you could look at it in terms of the process of purification, but I also think it's the road that everybody has to take to get to that point of melding all of this knowing together, and because it's knowing is it's not an opinion, it's an art.
It's
You know what I mean?
annoying.
It's a knowing.
Right.
But it's not most people will consider that they when you tell somebody who I call knowledge keepers about knowing, they immediately default to well, that's your opinion.
Hmm.
No, it's not my opinion. It's a whole different context.
Yeah,
And if you don't understand, and the only place I've ever found that was in the natural world,
me too.
you know, I mean, so I think that, as two elder shamans here who are trying to discuss different aspects of our experiences to pass on to other people so that they have uh, ideas or things that they can then pursue on their own volition. Um, you know, this, the natural world is a place where it has knowing. Knowing is just to the natural world is the same as breathing is to us.
Yeah, it's inherent.
And yes, absolutely. And so it's in the context of that is this, I think as we you and I both pursued different shamanic paths, that's what we were looking for.
Hmm.
I mean, we didn't probably go into it thinking that's what we needed to learn, but that's what we were looking for. We wanted that knowing. And inside of that knowing, you find your destiny, right?
Yeah.
You usually, your dream awakens and you start living your dream and and so here's my prompt for you now. I was reading recently where probably one of the biggest problems in this country is loneliness. It is it's like a pandemic, man. People don't have community. They don't have friends. They don't
They don't
have
have
family.
connection.
Yes, it's all been purposely, I think, designed to separate everything so that people become lost within the whole reality, which makes them controllable.
Yeah.
And so I think that I would like to use this aspect of loneliness in terms of us talking about and on our path, how did that impact us and help us to cure that problem?
Just the seeking out of connection. Um, yeah. Gosh, this is such a rich subject. There's so many places just in what you were just talking about that I wanted to go grab on and start down a rabbit hole from each one of those little side issues, or well, they're all core, but there's so many directions you can go.
All
Uh,
right, pick one.
yeah, well, you asked me to go along with loneliness and the connection. So I can tell you that uh, all of the worst decisions I've ever made have been rooted in a desire in my own psyche to garner approval from people. And that approval was what I was using to substitute for a sense of true connection from one person to another. I thought that getting the approval that I never had was the pathway into this thing that we would call the connection or the lack of loneliness. Um, I don't seek approval anymore. And I've gotten
Yeah.
over
Oh
that.
no.
I've gotten over that part of me that, so there's a process, when we are learning something. Um, Non-smokers become vehement anti-smokers for a while before they learn to
Right.
accept the fact that, yeah, other people are going to smoke, you know.
Right.
And
Right.
so I went through a period myself of where I would become nearly enraged by the idea that uh, that I needed someone's approval. So I would strike out in anger against a person who was trying to give me approval or suggesting that I would need their approval to accomplish whatever it was I was trying to do.
Right.
That period is over. Thank God, because life is so much more peaceful now. Um,
Right.
I don't know where to go with that. There's so much involved in what you were just telling me. I do believe that animals haven't lost the ability to stay in touch with that inherent knowing. I think
Absolutely.
that's how they communicate with each other. I can watch just the birds on my bird feeder and they're not saying anything. They're just, but you can tell that communication is happening in the way they line up for the seeds. They don't, rarely fight each other off for it. Um, Little things like that. The way they really, the, the animal world is not the violent jungle that naturalists of my youth made it out to be. Uh,
Right.
the natural world is not a constant struggle for superiority or territorialness. That has all been a projection of the human being observer projecting their own imperfection, if you will, upon
Right.
the phenomenon that they're looking at. Um,
Well, my experience in that is that has been, if the animal world that you're around perceives that you don't have knowing, you represent a threat.
yep, I agree with that.
Um,
Definitely.
And so you're a problem. You're a potential problem,
You think?
because you're yeah, because you don't have knowing, but when you do, if they do perceive that you have knowing, it's a whole different relationship.
Yeah, that's
It's
true.
a whole different thing. I mean, if you look at anybody that's worth their while as a horse whisperer, that's their whole trick,
Mhm.
to convince the horse that you know. And then
Yeah,
once that horse realizes, well, you're not a threat, then it begins to work with you, and you form a partnership.
and that you
So
empathize.
yeah, there's a co-creation thing that's established there between
Yeah,
the human and the animal that is based on trust because you've demonstrated to them, and I've done both. I mean, I've worked with a lot of different horses, and I've started out like the typical idiot, and hitting the horse and
yeah,
treating them like shit, because that's what I was taught to do. And
right. Me too. Yeah.
then I realized, well, that's not good, because every time I try to get on him, he bites me.
Right. Yeah. Not only is it not good,
There's
but it doesn't work.
got to be an alternative here. But I want, let's, I think what's really important in terms of going double back here to the shadow work thing, the problem with if you don't do shadow work is that this internal anxiety that is manifested and accumulated because of the inability to release that from your energy body, from your
Mhm.
spirit, tends to create using the law of attraction, a repulsion energy,
Yeah. Yeah.
and if people are repulsed from it, just like the animals are repulsed because they realize you could be a problem because, you
Yeah.
don't have knowing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and say the same thing, they don't put in that context, but
But they
there's
feel
a,
your vibe.
there's a, yeah, there's a vibe, that they don't want to be exposed to that. You can call them toxic people or however you want to frame it. But, and so I think in a spiritual path, it's vital that you find something that really helps you to work with releasing that part of yourself, and of course, um, the danger in that is it becomes a very fertile ground for cult enhancement,
Yeah, that's
because you end
true.
up, you get people use that as fodder against people to gain leadership and stuff. I mean, you and I have both seen
Yeah.
multiple situations where some path could have been really good and helpful to people, but somebody took it over and decided, well, I'm going to make this about me.
Yeah.
They switch out of the I am to how you like me now, you
Right.
know, and they spoil everything,
Yeah.
and so that dichotomy it's a thin line. I think that's where you hear about the razor's edge.
Uh-huh.
You have to stay on that razor's edge, and the thing that keeps you there, I think, is integrity.
Yeah. Yep.
You
I
know what I'm
think that's
saying?
true. Yeah. And integrity is hard. I mean, let's face it. So you get back to authenticity and you're seeking out your search for authenticity, right? And
Yeah.
and everybody wants to tell me that I was born imperfect, and I couldn't disagree with this more. I think that we're basically born essentially perfect, and then life toxifies the process, and we do this in to ourselves. And the imperfections that we see are all just life happening to us. And as we grow older and older and older, the decisions that we've made are what creates this inauthentic facade around us. And
Right.
there isn't enough, we could be doing a lot less of this to ourselves with slightly better educational tools, but that we don't have. But
Right.
there isn't enough emphasis on, it's just it's okay to get it wrong once in a while. And it's okay that you didn't get it right, but you need to figure out a way, like you are saying, to release this out. And I do think that something that has been coming up into my mind lately, because it looks like people want to say, well, Satan's winning, the dark forces are winning. And I don't actually really believe in dark forces that come upon you and take you over, unless you've got something inside of you already that's welcoming that thing, right? You have to have built
Right.
this up. And that's where we get back to that wolf bear story that I was telling you before, because that was the important thing I learned about it. So let me share that just real quick, because I've been
Yeah.
wanting to
Sure.
share this one for a long time. And it also goes back to, well, some interesting stuff. So while I was studying for with Oscar, one of the one of the exercises that we did with him was to try and access through our spiritual guides what our true name was, or you might say our authentic name, the universal name that we carry from soul to soul to soul, that is our, like, the name of that light ray that you basically are. And so I did the process, and I was in my ceremonies and in front of my mesa, and I was chanting, "Who am I?" And just over and over and over again, trying to use the mantra of the chant to open my consciousness and relax myself enough to where I could listen, basically, and hear the guides telling me what my true name was, my authentic name. Um, so finally, after weeks of doing this, I mean, not it wasn't weeks contiguously in front of my mesa, but my 20, 30 minutes at the mesa time, for weeks and 2 weeks, I finally somebody something broke through, and I started to see this whole dreamscape happening, and everybody was gathered around in a half circle in front of this large cave. And for some reason, the cave had bamboo bars on it. And I could see that it was time for me to be granted the exposure, of what my true name was. I was going to be told my true name. And this guy walks up, an old wizened man. He's got this staff, and he holds it up in front of this cave, and this beast comes out of the cave, and it's just a vile evil, and it looks like a half wolf and half bear, huge bear's head on a massive muscular wolf's body, and it's clawing at the gate trying to get out, and it's trying to get me. And I thought, oh my God, what is going on here? And the old man goes, I can't give you your true name until you deal with this. And I was like, wait, what? He goes, that you got to take care of that before I'm giving you your true name. And so then I had to sit with that beast. I sat outside the cage because I was afraid. I was afraid if I
Yeah.
let it out that it was going to just rip me to pieces and there wouldn't be anything left of me. I was afraid I was going to have a soul death, right? And like be like non-existent anymore. And so finally I, worked up the courage. I girded my loins and I could tell that it was kind of mellowing out and getting used to me a little bit. So I let it out. And instead of coming and attacking me, it came out and it was like, oh, thank you. You finally, now, now we can talk. Let's go. So he's frolicking all about. He's like, oh man, this is great. I'm out. He's like this little puppy, and I'm like, I get on his back. He rides me around. We're jumping around like, bucking broncos and stuff. It was like great. And so we learned how to have a discussion. And the thing that I learned most from that ally, who he is now, you might say a psychic ally, because if you poke me too much, I've got this wolf bear ready to, poke back, claw back, growl back.
Right.
And but he's generally friendly, if you leave him alone. But the thing I learned from
You
him the
you would have
most,
been you would have been great on the Jerry Springer show.
right? Yeah, throwing chairs. So uh the thing that he told me, the wolf bear, when we finally got a chance to sit down and talk about it, he said, you made me. I am your creation. All of the anger and guilt and bitterness that you've been swallowing all this time, that's what you've been feeding me on. And you built this. And it's going to be up to you to integrate all of that stuff that you've been trying to ignore, trying to disavow, you know. Um, and that is the process that began right away after I got that. And by the way, I did get my universal name. I can't share it with you, but I got it about a week later. And I'm so dense, They said, "Well, it's blah, 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 blah." And I'm like, "Wait, what? Blah, blah, blah." I said, "Wait, wait, wait, wait." They said, "Oh, for crying out loud, get a pencil." And they spelled it T. They spelled the whole thing out, and I said, "Oh, great, thank you. I get that." But sometimes in this spiritual work, the
Makes
end,
sense.
it's hard to hear sometimes because I'm the noisemaker, and I'm the wolf bear, and uh, I'm that inauthentic part of myself that hasn't been working. I built that. And that's what the shadow work is about. It's about going out and getting your wolf bear, talking to him, working through all that stuff. And then it took, incident by incident by incident coming out of my memory for me to forgive myself, forgive others, and make the commitment that I'm not going to behave like that anymore. That's the
So
integrity part.
exactly, and what comes to my mind is it seems like that's the thing a lot of people that do ayahuasca ceremonies are looking for.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? That seeking that death. So so let's reframe that a little bit because I was thinking about when you told me the story and you said you want to talk about that a little bit, and I was thinking about it, and I mean, the reality is you and I love that phenomena. We love the trance work. We love being able to fly places and do things,
yeah.
And but I remember being in ceremony one time and literally having to talk to myself, going, a lot of people aren't going to really understand this.
It's true.
You know, this can be a really tough sell.
That's why we're not
I mean,
selling
I like
anything.
it, but I don't think, hey, meet your bear wolf person, uh,
Yeah.
so, so listen, and that was kind of the moment where that was my first, like, I need to start looking for something else. And that's what propelled me towards the Melchizedek thing. But,
Mhm.
so, so let's translate that into, psychology or physiology, or tell us how that changed you on some level.
You want to do that in the next meeting because we just got to the end of our time zone.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So we'll leave that with the folks and then they can check us out on the next round.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to need about 5 minutes to think about it, which is just about
Okay.
how long it'll take this to resolve itself. Okay. Thank you, everybody. I think that means that we're going to move on and come back next episode. And I want to just tell everyone that we deeply appreciate your participation with us. And we want to do more of this. Thank you.